What is going on, my Houston Texans family? The Texans have entered the bye week. They get a much needed rest. They've been playing football since the preseason, the Hall of Fame game, ladies and gentlemen. But what have we learned from this Houston Texan offense, this Houston Texans defense, the coaching staff? This is where we get to see where this Houston Texans team is currently at before they finish up the season. And the next three games, ladies and gentlemen, the hardest of our schedule. We've been talking about it since the schedule was released. The Miami Dolphins, Kansas City Chiefs, and Baltimore Ravens all within 10 days of each other. But this episode brought to you and powered by BetUS. They are giving us a 150% sign-up bonus on our first deposit up to $2,000. On your second and third, it's 125% sign-up bonus. They have the SEC Championship tonight, Texas versus Georgia. Get your bets in. BetUS, quick 24-hour payouts, 24-hour customer service. Promo code YouTube150 gets it done. Now let's go ahead and continue with today's episode. One thing we have learned about this Houston Texan offense, it would be nowhere without running back Joe Mixon. We knew in the offseason a game-changing running back was needed, and that's exactly what we got. And general manager Nick Caserio only gave up a 7th-round pick for Joe Mixon. You know Cincinnati has to be kicking themselves in the ass. But what Joe Mixon has done in 10 games, because remember, he's missed some time due to that hip drop tackle that he suffered in week 2 on Sunday Night Football. He's rushed for 887 yards, 11 touchdowns on the ground. He is averaging a career high 88 yards a game. Now, his career high in rushing touchdowns is 13. And with 4 games left, I could easily see Joe Mixon ended up with 14, 15 rushing touchdowns. Now, this is with the Houston Texans offensive line being atrocious all year. They have failed to protect quarterback C.J. Stroud. And to be quite honest, Joe Mixon makes this offensive line better. Joe Mixon is so important to this Houston Texan offense. If he is not going, it's hard to see this Houston Texan offense be successful. And it's hard to see this Houston Texans team be successful as well. That's how important Joe Mixon has been to this offense. You talk about the captain patch that he got midway during the season. I think that was a step in the right direction. What Joe Mixon not only brings on the field, he brings off the field as well. That intensity that he runs with, he has that intensity on the sideline. He knows that this Houston Texan offense is not playing up to our standards. That's why we've heard about so many of these player meetings, because Joe Mixon knows that this locker room is special. He said it himself. Joe Mixon has been to the Super Bowl. He hasn't won one yet, so that hunger is still there. And coming out of the bye week, you saw his tweet. He had the Joker laughing, ha, 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 ha. He's embracing the villain role. This entire team is embracing the villain role. Could we see a different Joe Mixon, a more dangerous Joe Mixon, a more dangerous Houston Texan offense? I don't know. But one thing I've learned so far this year, the Houston Texans team will not be where it's at if it's not for number 28, Joe Mixon. Another thing we have learned about this Houston Texan offense, and we talked about it with Joe Mixon, this O-line. You might need 3 new interior offensive linemen next season. You might have an entire new unit in 2 years. Your left guard, Kenyon Green, who you spent a first-round pick on, that experiment has failed. It's safe to say that Kenyon Green is a bust, right? One of the rare negatives when it comes to the draft for general manager Nick Caserio. Juice Scruggs, who you traded up for in the 2nd round last season, has failed for you at center. They've moved him to left guard. Now, Nick Caserio gave Juice Scruggs some props and said that he's learning the position and getting better every single week. But you traded up multiple picks. You traded up in the 2nd round to make him your starting center. And right now, it looks like that experiment has failed. Your right guard, Shaq Mason. Now, unfortunately, it feels like the game has passed him. Shaq Mason has been in the NFL for a decade, has won multiple Super Bowls. It might be time for Shaq Mason to hang it up after this season. That's 3 new starters in year 3 for CJ Stroud, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I think when it comes to the offensive line, your sense of urgency has to be at an all-time high because of who you got back there throwing the rock. And if you do view CJ Stroud as a franchise guy, and I hope the Houston Texans do, then there needs to be a no-nonsense policy with this O-line. They should be offended that teams are trying to get to their quarterback. I think Laramie is here for the foreseeable future. I really don't know how I feel about Titus Howard. Maybe he's a left guard next season and Blake Fisher's your right tackle. I don't know. But this offensive line, it needs to change, ladies and gentlemen. And I have said that almost every single year of me doing this YouTube channel. The Houston Texans offensive line, they cannot protect the quarterback no matter who it is. Deshaun Watson, Davis Mills, Jeff Driscoll, Joe Webb, TJ Yates, Matt Schaub, Derek Carr. Now it's CJ Stroud. I could go on and on. But this offensive line, man, what we have learned, they just suck. One thing we've learned from this Houston Texans defense, well, we've learned a few things. They got cornerstone pieces in their secondary. Cornerback 1, Derek Stingley. I mean, he's one of the best CBs in the NFL. We knew that coming in. The conversations around Derek Stingley were not about talent. It was whether or not he can stay healthy, and he's been that this year. 3 interceptions on the season. Teams don't throw his way, and when they do, it's going back to the Houston Texans offense. Derek Stingley has elite closing speed, elite hands. The conversations about who is better, him or Sauce Gardner, are over. If you ask any NFL fan with a brain, who would you rather have, Derek Stingley or Sauce Gardner, they're not saying Sauce. Now, Derek Stingley's contract extension is coming up. And if I'm the Houston Texans, I'm giving Derek Stingley the bag. Lockdown cornerbacks are rare to come by, and that's exactly what Derek Stingley is, ladies and gentlemen. Make him a longtime Houston Texan. Have him finish his career here. Derek Stingley is one of them dudes. You look at his partner in crime, cornerback number 2, Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia. He should have a bid for Defensive Rookie of the Year. 3 interceptions on the season. If they're not testing Derek Stingley, they're testing the rookie. And more times than not this season, the rookie Kamari Lassiter has won. I know there were a lot of people questioning his 40-time. Hell, I was too. But Kamari Lassiter has made us look silly. He's really been a lockdown guy. You look at his tackling, physical. He lets you know when he got your ass. And I think Kamari Lassiter brings a swagger to this Houston Texans defense. Man, he has a bright future ahead of him. Another thing you've learned, right? The third cornerstone piece on the secondary, rookie Kalen Bullock. 4 interceptions this year. He truly is a ball hawk and safety. This secondary for the Houston Texans is young, ladies and gentlemen. And Kalen Bullock, I think in the future, he might be a captain for this Houston Texans defense. But it seems like whenever the ball is in the air against either of those 3 guys, I feel like it is going to be coming back and giving right back to CJ Stroud. But those 3 guys are cornerstone pieces of this Houston Texans defense, of this Houston Texans secondary. Now, we know the problems they still have, the big plays. Now, you got to give that to Eric Murray. You got to give that to Jimmy Ward. As much as I want to highlight those 3, there are some moments where the secondary gives up a big play. But if you notice, it's not on those 3. It's mainly on Eric Murray. It's mainly on Jimmy Ward, who got a contract extension, ladies and gentlemen. I will say that. But I think the Houston Texans might need to go into the offseason needing another safety to plug in next to Kalen Bullock. And finally, when it comes to this coaching staff, what we have learned is they are also growing. You look at head coach DeMeco Ryans, his second year as head coach of the Houston Texans, his second year in charge of our defense. I know Mac Burke is the defensive coordinator, but we know who's in charge. We know who's calling plays, and that's DeMeco. Now, I think some areas to grow for him, this conservative nature that he has, he is willing to win a football game by 1 point. I would like to see him trust his offense more. There is a reason why Dan Campbell is so loved up there in Detroit, a reason why he is, considered one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's a gambler. He's willing to go for it at any moment of the game. Look at what he just did against the Green Bay Packers. Moments like that, having that attitude, it's infectious. And I promise you, up there in Detroit, they feel like they can do anything they want. That's the kind of mindset that Dan Campbell has instilled in the Detroit Lions. And I think DeMeco could still have that, with this Houston Texans team. Now, of course, I want to see this mindset of the villain, right? We heard DeMeco say Trevor Lawrence should have slid quicker. The Jacksonville Jaguars overreacted. We heard general manager Nick Caserio say the picture painted around Azeez Al-Shaair is bullshit. So I wonder what's going to happen these last 4 games of the season. Can we see a new DeMeco Ryans mentality? I don't know. I know we're swarming, though. Special work ethic and relentless mindset. You look at Bobby Slowick, your second-year offensive coordinator. Now, when you talk about this offense, man, you could point to many different areas and say that's the reason why. The offensive line, your second-year quarterback struggling, the endless amount of penalties that have wiped away touchdowns, the woes in the second half. We heard general manager Nick Caserio said absolutely not. When it comes to making changes at coordinator, he believes in Bobby Slowick, and we just need to see the growth. With 4 games left of the season, and you have 3 opportunities to put good W's on the board. Because if you beat a Miami, you beat a Kansas City, you beat a Baltimore, you beat 2 out of the 3, everyone is going to be looking different at this Houston Texans team. But ladies and gentlemen, that's what I have learned from this Houston Texans team as they enter the bye week. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. For more Houston Texans content, just feel free to follow me for more comeback. And you guys know, this episode is brought to you and powered by BetUS. 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. On your second and third, 125% promo code YouTube150. Guys, you have a very blessed day. I'll see you on Monday.